What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn, and today we're going to be doing our overreactions to the 49ers Sunday night win against the LA Rams. Matt, there's a ton of overreactions going on out there, and the first one I want to get your opinion on is that win means the 49ers are Super Bowl contenders again. The season is back on track, and they righted all their wrongs in that one victory. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to do that. We expect that out of the fan base, though, right? Like the up and down reaction, the back and forth, like everything is great versus the sky is falling. We know those guys who are just emotional on either end of the spectrum. And it's one of those things that you just kind of like, you just shake your head and let them do it. But to just say that all their problems are fixed, I don't think that's necessarily the case. You know, they scored 3 points in the second half. They gave up some deep balls, particularly the Emmanuel Mosley touchdown. It wasn't a perfect game by any means. And, you never play the perfect game, but there were definitely areas where I think that they need to improve on. And we got to see that going forward. And, before we can say, oh, they're Super Bowl contenders, let's not forget this team is 3-3 right now. And they need to really do some work the rest of the way through this gauntlet of games that they got coming up, which, after today looks a little bit easier. I still think Green Bay, that the 49ers can push them around. They're just not a physical team. And so if you get physical with them, the Saints don't look the same. And even, to a certain extent today, the Buffalo Bills just don't look like the Buffalo Bills. They've been pushed around 2 weeks in a row. So, especially defensively for that team. So, there are winnable games, but the key thing here is the 49ers have to go out and win them. And we've seen teams that we're supposed to beat, like the Eagles, and supposed to beat like the Cardinals, who, aren't exactly lighting the world on fire. We don't beat those teams. And, let's not forget that 2 weeks ago, the Dolphins put a whooping on us big time. So to say that they're Super Bowl contenders, I don't think that's necessarily the case. Do I think that they're in the mix for, a potential, 7th seed or a 6th seed in the playoffs? Sure. Like that's not outside of the realm of the possibility, because the NFC has some really bad teams. We see it with the Giants. We see it with the Washington football team. Essentially the entire NFC East. Like, they're just terrible. The Vikings are bad. The Lions are bad. So you're looking at enough bad teams that, yeah, the 49ers have a really good shot at making it. And I've said this before, I wouldn't be surprised if the entire NFC West made the playoffs in this expanded year. So, but the key is they have to go out and win the games. First and foremost, they can't beat themselves. They have to execute. This is a good step in the right direction, but it's a little bit premature to kind of crown them.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on this one. Let's take a second to remember the 4 teams that the Rams had beaten going into Sunday night, and it was the NFC East. Cowboys, the Eagles, the Giants, and the Washington football team. So they weren't, beating these fantastic teams, No. And they came into Sunday night, and although they did look good as a team, the 49ers had their number recently. Divisional matchups have always played out weird. So the fact that they won Sunday night doesn't necessarily mean they don't have any more worries going forward. Everything's fixed. All the questions we had have been answered. Not at all. This team still left some points on the board. They were questionable play calls, questionable decisions. And also, let's not forget, as soon as Mostert went out, this offense completely stalled. And you cannot have that, especially now that Mostert, unfortunately, was placed on injured reserve today. They're going to need to answer for that. They're going to need to, going against these top contenders.
Tasty season.
It's tasty. That's right. But going against these top contenders, you can't have 3 or 4 drives back to back to back end in punts. You're going to need to continue to put points up on the board regardless of the situation. So I would disagree with this take that, everything's fixed and they are top contenders again for the Super Bowl. I agree with you, Matt. They are definitely put themselves back into consideration for a playoff spot. But as of right now, that's tops. The next overreaction I want to get your opinion on is that George Kittle is not doing enough in the sense that he's still dropping too many passes. He's not succeeding enough in the run game. And the 49ers are going to need more out of George Kittle than what we saw Sunday night moving forward if this team does want any chance at getting into the postseason.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I know that, Our boy Mike from Nothing But Niners was on that train. I think a lot of it was alcohol induced, and now he has to dig his heels in. But no, I kind of I get the aspect that did Kittle miss a couple of blocks? Yes, he did. Did he have a drop? Yes, he did. One of the balls was behind him. That's not his fault. Again, another one was in the dirt. But at the same time, he is the superstar, and so he's needs to be judged accordingly as a superstar. And with that will come some extra scrutiny. On the flip side, he also had 7 catches for 109 yards and a touchdown. So, to really hammer on him about that, I think that's planting your flag on the wrong hill, so to speak. I don't think that's the hill to die on. And it's kind of weird when, people are willing to write off other players' mistakes because they're not as good, as if that's some sort of excuse for an NFL player to make mistakes. As far as I'm concerned, everybody on an NFL team is a professional, so they have to own up to their mistakes. And, Kendrick Bourne had drops. Jimmy had a couple of bad throws. Emmanuel Mosley gave up a touchdown. Like there were plays left out on the field from everybody. So, for the most part, Kittle doesn't drop that many balls. He'll have a concentration drop every now and again, but that's literally everyone in the league not named DeAndre Hopkins or Julio Jones. Those guys don't drop the ball. But everybody else, literally everybody, Odell Beckham drops balls. Not that I don't think the Browns use him right. That's part of it. But regardless, everybody has drops. Every single elite quarterback has bad throws. There was Patrick Mahomes had a ridiculous throw tonight that should have been picked off, but it went right through the defender's hands. So, everybody makes bad plays, and I don't think that it's fair to linger on those things when Kittle, in general, does a ton. Ask Kyle Shanahan if he gave a shit about those drops, and he'd probably say no. He doesn't care. Why? Because Kittle is the heart and soul of that offense. Not Jimmy, not anybody on the line, not anybody other than George Kittle. He's really the heart of that locker room. So to kind of hammer on him about that, I don't know. I think it's a little misplaced, even though I do understand that superstar players need to be held to superstar standards. I don't think that this was anything less than a good performance from George Kittle.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is a weird one because it's like, what more do you want from him? He can't go, bat 1,000 every single outing. He's going to have a couple mental mistakes. Like you said, some of the balls weren't even catchable, but they're going to attribute those as drops. And, looking at his stats.
I don't even think they counted him as drops. That one that was behind him on second and whatever, I don't think they're counting that as a drop. Like, I think that's just an incomplete pass. That ball was a good 2 yards behind him, and he had to contort his body and stop mid-stride to try to catch that, and he just wasn't able to do it. But I don't think you could pin that on the receiver. That was definitely a bad throw by Jimmy.
Right.
So
no.
Me, he really had one drop.
Some people do.
Which was when, I know. He really had the one drop where Ramsey was on him and the ball just went through his hands inexplicably. Mm-hmm. Ramsey didn't touch it. It was just one of those things where it just went 5-hole on him. And that's one of those weird plays that'll happen sometimes, Again, like I said, the best players earlier in the Buffalo Bills Kansas City Chiefs game, Josh Allen, wrong-footed 55-yard dot into the back of the end zone that hit Stephon Diggs in the hands and he couldn't catch it. Those things happen, but I don't think that makes George Kittle any less of a contributor or, any less a superstar. And I don't think that deserves any extra criticism for it. It's kind of off base for me.
It is. And, I was going to pull up his career stats against the Rams. So like you said, Sunday night, he had 7 receptions for 109 yards, a touchdown. The last game, 5 catches for 79 yards and a touchdown. The game before that, 8 catches for 103 yards, no touchdowns. The game before that, 9 catches, 149 yards and a touchdown. This game was
choose out the Rams.
Yeah. It was on par for what he does against the Los Angeles Rams. And for all that is asked of him, you could pull him in the backfield to block on 3rd and long. You can, do running plays with him. You could do screen plays with him. You could do deep passes to him. He does so much for this offense. And not only that, he is the soul of this offense. It was like when Quan Alexander went out on defense last year, you just felt that energy be taken off the field. That's what George Kittle is for this offense. So he helps this team in way more ways than you can count. So yeah, totally disagree with this take. Last one for you is, I have actually seen this one go around quite a bit, is that Robert Saleh still is not doing enough. And if the 49ers lost last night, should have been solely on Robert Saleh's shoulders.
I agree with the first part. I don't agree with the second part, because the offense did completely stall. And I think that does take a toll on the defense. But I just don't know how I feel about Robert Saleh. I just don't know what I'm getting week in and week out. There are too many lapses in coverage. There's too many dips in energy. There's too many little things here and there, the adjustments that come late, things like that, that really you have to sit at the feet of Robert Saleh. And I don't know that I can let him completely off the hook when, really the only year that he's had a good defense was last year. And that's when they had that just overwhelmingly good pass rush. And the one thing that I will say about last year that's different than this year, at least before last night with the Jason Verrett interception, is last year they forced a lot of turnovers. I know that people focused on the picks early, but they also forced a lot of fumbles last year. And this year they're not forcing those turnovers. I think the turnover differential for the 49ers is actually below average in the league. I don't have the exact numbers, but I just know that they're not turning the ball over like they did before, as far as for the defense getting takeaways. And, that's something that kind of reflects on Saleh too. So it's really, it really makes it difficult to go to bat for somebody like Saleh when, you see that when a little adversity comes his way, you see them slip back to average. When you don't have those super elite talents on the defensive line causing havoc every single play, because let's face it, Bosa's impact on this defensive line went far beyond the stat sheet. He was the focal point of offensive coordinators, and they had to stop him no matter what. So that freed up everybody else to kind of get theirs and get pressure. And I think that him being able to pressure the quarterback so much and free up others to get pressure on the quarterback was really the linchpin of the defense last year, along with Fred Warner holding it down at the linebacker spot, which he's still doing, by the way. But you see the big differences, two things really: the secondary injuries and the defensive line injuries, Nick Bosa not being out there. And let's not forget, Robert Saleh is the guy that calls the defense. He's the one solely responsible for keeping Brian Allen out there on an island time after time after time after time. And it's just, those kind of things are unforgivable. And you can say, oh, Tarvarius Moore didn't play corner, or you can say, oh, this guy is this or this guy is that. Those are all excuses. You put the best players in the best spot to win. Brian Allen obviously was not it. He was picked on early. After the second deep ball that went his way, you should have yanked him. But then he got three more. It's just, there's no excuse for it. He should have lasted a drive, maybe two, and then he's gone. Not 2 full quarters, and then throw in, an injured Akella Witherspoon that thoroughly outplayed him. Injured. So, with Emmanuel Mosley back, it was hard to get Akella out on the field this week. It's just one of those things where it's just it's so those are the things that really bother me about Robert Saleh. However, for this week, I don't think you put the blame solely on him, because the offense did stall once Raheem Mostert came out, and I think that Kyle got a little conservative with the play calling in the second half.
It's tough because, like you said, there's so much nuance to it. And Robert Saleh, he benefited greatly last season from having the best defensive roster in the NFL, and then this year his unit's been decimated by injuries. Best player Nick Bosa is no longer there. Richard Sherman's no longer there. At least right now they're injured. Interior line is different. The secondary has been beat up, chewed up. So it's tough to grade, because it's like, what is he? It's like, like you said before, if you're going to let me cook dinner, you got to let me buy the groceries. And it's like, well, the groceries right now, he's dealing with leftovers, not much. So it's like, it's hard to grade. But at the same time, from what he does have, the play calling, the decision making, just as you laid out, is questionable. It's questionable at best, and at times it seems like he gets in his own head, and it's almost like he's too committed to the scheme. He's too committed to the scheme over players, and it's like you got to make some adjustments. You got to tweak it a little bit when it's not working, and he doesn't seem to do it. And if he does it too late. So yes and no. This week specifically, no. But over the long run, yeah, he could be seen as their kind of Achilles heel because he's not used to adjusting and he's not used to putting the players first as far as over his scheme. So it's tough because you're grading him based off of who he's got out there and he doesn't really have anyone. So yes and no, I'll leave it at that. But I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share this video, and drop a comment below. Which of these overreactions do you agree with or do you think was the worst one?
Go ahead and click the bell, turn your notifications on so you never miss a video. Until next time, go Niners.